Are you serious? Are you serious? Well, the debate on whether or not the United States of America goes to war is raging on the Capitol Hill. President Barack Obama right now in Stockholm, Sweden, actually I just seen he was speaking, and is then headed to Russia for the G20 summit. There's no question, even though it's supposed to be about economics, this summit is about Syria. It's about war or no war. It's about chemical weapons. It's about 110,000 dead Syrians. It's about children being gassed with chemical weapons. And it's about who did it. Now, most of the intel coming from the United States, from Israel, from Germany, from England, from France, all say that it was Assad that did it. The Russians say no, it wasn't. It was the Muslim Brotherhood, who also have Al-Qaeda freedom fighters with them, who did it. And you need to, before you make a decision to strike, you need to know who it is you're striking. And this is what the debate is going to be about. It's going to be very, very intense. And I urge you to pray for our nation. I urge you to pray for our president, that whatever is the final decision made, pray for our Congress, that cooler heads prevail. I'm very concerned that if America does a limited strike, and it looks as if we're going to, and Bible prophecy tells you that Damascus will become a ruinous heap. I don't think it's because of one major nuke. I think it's systematically over a series of events, which is actually explained in the prophecy in Jeremiah 49, verses 23 through 27. But are we getting the facts? Is the truth being revealed to us correctly from the media or from the governments of the world that are very contentious? Well, I want you to hear a very intense discussion between Secretary of State John F. Kerry and Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. And this should show you the differences of opinions as it relates to our Constitution. Who has the right to declare whether we fire 200 Tomahawk missiles into Syria? Does the Congress have that authority, or does the President? And what will be the decision that comes out of all of this? Here we go. I want you to listen right now. Here is Rand Paul discussing the rights of the Constitution with John F. Kerry.
But if we lose what? I mean, make me proud today, Secretary Kerry. Stand up for us and say, you're going to obey the Constitution, and if we vote you down, which is unlikely, by the way, but if we do, you would go with what the people say through their Congress, and you wouldn't go forward with a war that your Congress votes against. Can you give me a better answer, Secretary Kerry?
I can't give you a different answer than the one I gave you. I don't know what the president's decision is, but I will tell you this. It ought to make you proud because he still has the constitutional authority, and he would be in keeping with the Constitution.
Well, I disagree with you there. I don't believe he has the constitutional authority. I think Congress has this. Madison was very explicit. When he wrote the Federalist Papers, he wrote that history supposes, or the Constitution supposes what history demonstrates, that the executive is the branch most likely to go to war, and therefore the Constitution vested that power in the Congress. It's explicit and runs throughout all of Madison's writings. This power is a congressional power, and it is not an executive power. They didn't say big war, small war. They didn't say boots on the ground, not boots on the ground. They said declare war. Ask the people on the ships launching the missiles whether they're involved with war or not. If we do not say that the Constitution applies, if we do not say explicitly that we will abide by this vote, you're making a joke of us. You're making us into theater. And so we play constitutional theater for the president. If this is real, you will abide by the verdict of Congress. You're probably going to win. Just go ahead and say it's real, and let's have a real debate in this country and not a meaningless debate that in the end you lose and you say, oh, well, we had the authority anyway. We're going to go ahead and go to war anyway.
So that you hear the tone of Rand Paul. He's happy that the President of the United States made a decision to send this to Congress to be debated, which actually is what should be done based on the Constitution. Rand Paul, though, his concern is, but what if the vote is no? Does the president obey the Congress, or will he override us anyway? Mr. Kerry, can you tell us, is this vote real or not? And secondly, then explain to me why we should go to war, why we should attack Syria, and what will be the ramifications of that attack. Will there be counterattacks by Hezbollah from southern Lebanon on Israel? Will Syria have Scud missiles that they will fire into Israel? Will Russia respond with military strikes on the Muslim Brotherhood in other parts of the country of Syria? Will Turkey get involved? Will the United States just pack up and go home and leave the Middle East in a worse condition than if they didn't get involved? Now, look, I'm all for stopping chemical weapons, but it's not just chemical weapons, folks. There was 110,000 dead people before this chemical weapon attack. I mean, blowing people's body parts off is just as bad as gassing them. One even kills you quicker than the other. So it's not about how you die, it's why you're dying and what's going on. And so this is why we have to pray. And this is why I believe we're watching Isaiah 17. Verse 1, prophecy is coming to pass. And at the end of the day, when these guys are all done, it's not going to matter. They're going to walk right into the biblical prophecy. Now, let me take you to an exchange between Kerry and Rand Paul that actually took place yesterday. It was pretty heated. But again, it shows you the situation, how intense it's getting.
But let me just make it very clear to you that, you ask these questions, will this or that be more likely to happen or not likely to happen? If the United States of America doesn't do this, Senator, is it more or less likely that Assad does it again? You want to answer that question?
I don't think it's known. I don't think
Is it more or less likely that he does it again?
You have the attack. I think it's unknown whether it's more or less unknown whether you have the attack.
Senator, it's not unknown. If the United States of America doesn't hold him accountable on this with our allies and friends, it's a guarantee Assad will do it again. A guarantee. And I urge you to go to the classified briefing and learn that. Secondly, let me just...
Before he goes on a little further here, his point is it's guaranteed if we don't do it, he's going to use chemical weapons again and again and again. This is what John Kerry's position is. This is the position of the Obama administration. Rand Paul's response basically is, and his question is, and he said it a lot lengthier earlier in the day, was, I don't know what the response is. I don't know if they'll ever do it again. But what are the ramifications of us poking the lion in the eye? I mean, basically, what is the end result? Are you taking Assad out of power? Are you going to kill the lion? Or are you just going to poke him in the eye? And what does that do to the region? And how does the Muslim Brotherhood, do they gain advantage? For instance, if the United States strikes Syria and their military installations and their airport, air force, whatever. First of all, and right now, Assad's putting chemical weapons and different weaponry into public places where people are. He's going to use civilians as human shields. A lot of civilians are going to die in this. There's no question. General Dempsey said they have 50 targets that are ready to go. They know where it is if they do move them, and they know the 50 targets are going to hit. And I'm going to tell you something. After this strike is done, and it will happen, America will do it, the question is, then what? Does this open the door for the Muslim Brotherhood to come roaring in and take Assad out of power? And then what is that new Syria going to look like? I mean, so these are a lot of these questions. But let me explain. Let's let the two of them go through what's called I call it a war exchange that took place between the Secretary of State, John F. Kerry, and Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul. I want you to listen to this 2-minute exchange.
Just point out to you that with respect to this question of Americans wanting to go to war, you know, you got 3 people here who have been to war. You got John McCain who's been to war. There's not one of us who doesn't understand what going to war means, and we don't want to go to war. We don't believe we are going to war in the classic sense of taking American troops and America to war. The president is asking for the authority to do a limited action that will degrade the capacity of a tyrant who has been using chemical weapons to kill his own people.
But I think by doing so, you announce
It's a limited. It's limited.
By doing so, you announce in advance that your goal is not winning.
But that's not.
And I think the last 50 years of secretaries of defense would say,
Senator,
if your
when
goal is not to
people
win,
are
you
asked,
shouldn't be
do you
involved.
want to go to war in Syria? Of course not. Everybody, 100% of Americans will say no. We say no. We don't want to go to war in Syria either. It's not what we're here to ask. The president is not asking you to go to war. He's not asking you to declare war. He's not asking you to send one American troop to war. He's simply saying we need to take an action that can degrade the capacity of a man who's been willing to kill his own people by breaking a nearly 100-year-old prohibition. And will we stand up and be counted to say we won't do that? That's not, I just don't consider that going to war in the classic sense of coming to Congress and asking for a declaration of war and training troops and sending people abroad and putting young Americans in harm's way. That's not what the president is asking for here.
Now, then why ask? Because if you're saying you don't have a constitutional, you don't have to ask the Congress, then why ask? And if it's dire straits that it be done, then it should have already been done. The question is, the reason that they have to ask is because there's new intelligence coming forth that is questioning whether or not this really was Assad, that it may have been the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't know. It may have been Assad. It really may have been Assad. And I actually trust the Israelis' intelligence more than anybody's. And they say it's Assad. So having said that, what does the prophecy say? I say America's going to strike Syria, and then I say the Muslim Brotherhood's going to overrun, and Damascus is going to get uglier. And 6 months from now, it's going to be way more killing and murdering than you have now. Here's what the Bible says about this situation. In Isaiah 17:1, it says, very point blank, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. Now that is the conclusion. Isaiah just says, let me tell you the conclusion of Damascus. But Jeremiah breaks it down for us in 4 verses on how it comes about. Jeremiah says in Jeremiah 49:23 through 27, concerning Damascus, Hamath is confounded and Arpad, for they have heard evil tidings. They are faint-hearted, and there is sorrow on the sea. It cannot be quiet. We know America right now has 5 warships there and a spy ship and over 200 Tomahawk missiles sitting there in Syrian waters close to Syria, able to strike. And there's sorrow on the sea. Also, there's other ships there from Russia and others. Verse 24, Damascus is waxed feeble. We know that's truly the condition she's in. It's turned herself to flee. Are you serious? 2 million people have left Syria in the last 2.5 years. 2 million people are living in refugee camps. They had to flee. And fear has seized on her. And anguish and sorrows have taken her as a woman in travail. She can't escape. How is the city of praise not left? The city of my joy. Therefore her young men shall fall in her streets. We've been seeing that repeatedly. And all the men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith the Lord of hosts. You're getting ready to see that when the bombings happen very soon. And then the last verse. And I will kindle a fire in the wall of Damascus, and it shall consume the palaces of Ben-Hadad. So that you're getting ready to see the men of war cut off, and then you're going to eventually see the walls, the very walls of Damascus, the perimeter, the last stronghold of it being a city. You'll see it on fire. I'm Pastor Paul Begley. I'm sharing this with you because this is a critical time for our country. America needs a lot of prayer. Our president, I urge you and I beg you to pray for him, that he will be able to hear the voice of God and do the right thing. But at the end of the day, whatever that decision is, pray for the people of Damascus, and then ask yourself this question: how close are we to the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. Are you saved? Give your life to Jesus.